Hello, and welcome back to the Morning Brew, where we start our day inspired. As every week, I came across a quote, and here I am sharing with you. It says, "Your relationship with yourself sets the standard for every relationship you allow into your life." And I think there is so much packed into that one sentence because we spend a lot of time thinking about our relationships with other people. Are there treating us well? Do they appreciate us? Do they respect our boundaries? Are they showing up for us? Are they communicating? Are they giving as much as we're giving? And those are all important questions. But there is another question we don't ask nearly enough, and that is, how am I treating myself? Because that relationship is setting the tone for everything else. Think about it. If deep down you believe you have to earn love, you might become the person who overgives. If you believe your needs are less important than everyone else, you might become the person who constantly accommodates. If you believe saying no will make people disappointed in you, you might have very few boundaries. And if you've learned to talk to yourself with criticism, you might eventually accept criticism from other people as the normal. Not because you want it, but because it feels familiar. And that's the part I think we sometimes miss. We don't just choose relationships based on what we consciously want. We also gravitate towards what feels familiar, even when familiar is not healthy. So, let's start with something very, very simple. How do you talk to yourself? What happens when you make a mistake? Do you say, okay, that didn't go the way I planned. What can I learn? Or do you immediately go and it says, of course, I messed that up. Or I should have known better. Or what's wrong with me? Because that internal voice becomes the voice you live with every single day. And if you're constantly criticizing yourself, it's going to be very difficult to build relationships where you feel safe being imperfect. You become afraid of making mistakes, afraid of disappointing people, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of not being enough. And suddenly, you're managing relationships from fear instead of connection. I think boundaries are another place where this shows up. For years, many of us were taught that being a good person meant being available, helping, accommodating, saying yes, keeping everyone happy. But there is a difference between being generous and abandoning yourself. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do to yourself is saying, I can't do that, or that doesn't work for me, or I need more time, or even just a simple no. And you don't have to write a 5-paragraph explanation afterwards. A boundary is not a rejection. It's information. It's telling yourself my needs matter too. And when you start believing that, your relationships begin to change. Here's a question I want you to sit with. What are you tolerating that doesn't align with the way you say you want to be treated? Maybe it's something small, someone constantly interrupting you, or someone only calling when they need something, or a relationship where you're always the one taking the effort, or a workplace where your contribution is constantly overlooked. Or maybe it's something much bigger. And I'm not saying every difficult relationship needs to end. Relationships are complicated. People have bad days. We have bad days. We misunderstand each other. We disappoint each other. That's life. But there is a difference between normal imperfection and a repeated pattern that erodes your sense of worth. And sometimes we stay in those patterns because we're more afraid of losing the relationship than we are of losing ourselves. That's where the relationship with yourself matters. Now, I don't mean this in a simplistic way of saying if someone treats you badly, it's your fault. That is not what I'm trying to say here. Other people's behavior is their responsibility. But do you have influence over what you accept what you communicate, what you reinforce, and when you decide something no longer works for you, absolutely. And that is powerful because your standards aren't just something you write down, they're demonstrated through your choices. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you speak up, every time you honor a boundary, every time you walk away from something that it's not aligned, that you're teaching yourself, I can trust me. And that changes everything. Here's what I've learned. When you start improving your relationship with yourself, you don't necessarily end up with fewer relationships. You end up with different relationships. You become more discerning. You stop confusing chemistry with capability, or you stop confusing being needed with being valued. You stop confusing being busy with being connected. You stop chasing people who are inconsistent with you, and you become much more interested in relationships where you can actually be yourself. And that's a beautiful kind of growth. This isn't about romantic relationships or friendships. It shows up in our careers. Think about the way you show up at work. Do you constantly feel like you have to prove your worth? Do you say yes to everything because you're afraid of being seen as less committed? Do you minimize your accomplishments? Do you struggle to ask for what you need? Do you believe being a great employee means being endlessly available? Again, the question is, what does everyone else expect of me? It's not, what standard am I setting for how I want to work and to be treated? Because your career is also a relationship. And your relationship with yourself walks into every room with you. Let me make something really clear. Having a healthy relationship with yourself isn't about becoming selfish. It's not about putting yourself first every second. It's not about never compromising. It's not about believing that you're always right. It's actually the opposite. When you trust yourself, you can listen better. When you respect yourself, you can respond to others without needing their approval. When you know your worth, you don't have to diminish anyone else. And when you're secure in who you are, you can love people without needing them to complete you. That's the kind of relationship I want. Not perfect, not effortless, but honest. So here's what I want you to think about today. If someone treated you exactly the way you treat yourself, would you feel loved, respected, and safe? That's a powerful question. And maybe the answer is yes. Wonderful. Keep nurturing that relationship. But if the answer makes you uncomfortable, don't judge yourself. Get curious. Maybe there's where some of your next growth is waiting for you. Your relationship with yourself sets the standard. Not because you control how everyone treats you, you don't, but because the way you see yourself influences what you accept, what you communicate, what you tolerate, and what you believe is possible in your relationship. So maybe this week, don't focus only on finding better relationships. Focus on becoming a better relationship with yourself. Talk to yourself with more kindness. Keep one promise you made to yourself. Set one boundary. Give yourself credit for something you've been overlooking. And practice trusting your own voice. Because the relationship you'll have for the rest of your life is the one you have with yourself. So before you finish your coffee this morning, I want you to ask yourself, what kind of relationship am I building with me? And then ask, is that the standard I want to carry into every other relationship in my life? You don't need to change anything today. Just start noticing, because awareness changes things. And sometimes the most important relationship work you can do starts with the person looking back at you in the mirror. Let's finish our coffee. Let's be a little kinder with ourselves today. And let's remember that we set the standard. You set the standard. I'll see you next time.